Hello everybody, I am Cyberman Alf in complete and utter shock, and this is my review of Fugitive of the Judoon. So, I'm just gonna talk really quickly in this first bit, because there's so much that happens in this episode. This review's gonna be long as it is. And I also have a theory about the Timeless Child, which I'm gonna add on at the end, because I think I'm starting to see what this is now. So anyway, this episode left me with two things. First, what just happened? Second thing, wow. That was such an incredible episode. It is by far the best episode of the Jodie Whittaker era. And there will be spoilers, so spoiler alert here. You have been warned. 3, 2, 1. Captain Jack is back. I know he wasn't in it much this episode, but trust me, he will be back. He will definitely be back later in the series, possibly in the finale, and that gets me so excited. I was watching this episode, and Graham transported onto this ship, and I was like, ooh, that's a Tardis, isn't it? What's going on? And then I just heard his voice, and I didn't even need to see him. I was just like, it's Captain Jack. I was just, that was such an incredible moment. I was just in complete and utter shock. I literally just screamed out, it's Captain Jack, and then he appeared, and I cheered, because he's such a great character. And he is perfectly written in this episode. Oh, so good. Meanwhile, back on Earth, everything seems to be going as it did in Smith and Jones. Until weird things start happening. The Judoon seem like they're not following all the intergalactic laws they can. And I think, I'm just going to quickly talk about the characters. The Doctor, wow. Amazing, and I will get to the other Doctor in a second. The companions, they didn't really have much to do this episode, but their interactions with Captain Jack were so great. And I really love them quizzing the Doctor at the end, and I really like the Doctor getting a bit angry with them. So everything in this episode with the companions and the Doctor, so good. Anyway, yeah. I don't know what to say about the other reveal, apart from the fact that she got to her house, broke the glass, and the regeneration energy came in. I'm like, oh, she's the Rani or something. The Doctor dug up the Tardis, and at that point I thought, well, she's not the Doctor. She's going to kill the Doctor, and then bury the Tardis or something. But no, she was the Doctor. And I really liked her costume as well. I thought her costume was really good. And I was just like, what is going on? I think I know how she can be the Doctor, and I'm going to theorize about that in a second. But her performance, Jo Martin's performance as Ruth was, as you would expect from a Doctor Who side character. As the Doctor, oh, so good. Anyway, we then go meet this character, Gat, who you find out is a Time Lord, but they know nothing of the destruction of Gallifrey. Now, you find out she's been employed by someone to employ the Judoon on behalf of the Time Lords or something to capture the Doctor, but not our Doctor, the Ruth Doctor. And I think it's very good what they managed to do with this new Doctor, introduce it to us, and I think she worked really well in this episode. And there's a lot of theories going about, well, she's a pre-Hartnell Doctor, but I doubt that. And I also, because Gat seems to be from that pre-Hartnell sort of time, if Ruth's a pre-Hartnell Doctor, so I'm guessing that that's probably not the case, and as I said, I'll get onto that in a minute. But I thought Gat worked well for the small time she had in the episode. I thought the Judoon were amazing. I really like the CGI on them as well. I think it worked really well. And the Judoon were just funny. The Judoon were a lot of fun, as they should be. But it wasn't really about them. It was more about their fugitive and Captain Jack. So I've just got to talk about Captain Jack some more. I'm sorry, but the Lone Cyberman, I'm so happy. Because I really wanted it to be a Lone Cyberman, just a broken Lone Cyberman story. And, it sets up the finale so perfectly. And it was just amazing seeing him back again. And I think that the Lone Cyberman thing with him will work really well, and I can't wait to see him come back later in the series. Anyway, back to the Doctor. I think this is probably an alternate timeline Doctor. Well, I mean, it could be an alternate timeline Doctor, because the Master heavily hinted that he was from an alternate timeline as well, and the series has been dealing with a lot of alternate timelines. But at this point, it was really good, but also really confusing. And I don't think that's really a problem. This episode was incredible and confusing all at the same time. So, I think that I'm really lost for words at this point in the episode. I think that everything from this point onwards just works really well. The Doctor dropping our Doctor off at her Tardis. Things not really getting explained in this episode. I think everything about this episode just worked really well. So this is a sort of like shorter review of an episode because I wanted to fit in my timeless child theory. So that will be coming up now, but I just need to give it an overall score. And overall, I give this episode a 25 billion out of 10. Really, but because I'm being insensible, it's a 10 out of 10 from me. An amazing, phenomenal episode, and confusing in every single possible way, and I love it. So, using the evidence that we were presented with throughout this series and the last series about Timeless Child and learning more, I've kind of come to a theory about it. And I don't think that the Ruth Doctor is a pre-Hartnell Doctor, because that would really annoy a lot of fans. But wouldn't make any sense, seeing as the police box shape was first taken by the Hartnell Doctor, and things like that. So, I have a theory about the Timeless Child. And my theory is that the Timeless Child isn't a singular person or being, but a species. So, the way I'm going to go through this theory is I'm just going to say, what I think in terms of timeline from the beginning of time to present-day Doctor Who happened. So, my theory is, there are two universes. One universe, the universe of the Time Lords, and the other universe of the Timeless Child. The universe of the species of the Time Lords and the species of the Timeless Child in two different universes. Both species practically identical, apart from the fact that the Time Lords are mortal, whereas the Timeless Child are immortal. The Time Lords become aware of the other universe and the Timeless Child, and manage to get there and trap the Timeless Child species and use them to gain their regeneration powers. In the Timeless Child, seeing as it's an alternate universe, there are some doppelgangers of currently existing Time Lords. So all the Time Lords that exist in this universe and also exist as a Timeless Child, the Timeless Child counterparts, are killed by the Time Lords. And also, now that they've used the Timeless Child to give themselves regeneration powers, it also limits the Timeless Child lives to 13. Anyway, the Timeless Child that don't have a counterpart in this universe are free to go. Except as they're killing all the doppelgangers of the Time Lords, the Timeless Child version of the Doctor escapes. Except at this point, he/she is not called the Doctor, and takes up the name the Doctor as a way of disguising themselves and managing to keep a secret from the Time Lords. At this point, the Time Lords wipe the memories of the Timeless Child species of who they were before, and there are now two species living on Gallifrey, the species of the Time Lords and the species of the Timeless Child, but all believing to be Time Lords. except the Doctor, because she escaped. Now, the Doctor has a Time Lord counterpart as well as a Timeless Child counterpart, and the Time Lords discover that the Doctor knows. So the Doctor steals a Tardis and runs away, and uses some device to wipe their memory for their own protection, which is why they're unaware of the Timeless Child. Meanwhile, the Time Lord counterpart of the Doctor continues to work for the Time Lords until she eventually decides not to and becomes their fugitive. She then goes on to steal a TARDIS and become the Roof Doctor. So the Doctor we've been spending the entire 50 plus years of the show is actually the Timeless Child version of the Doctor, as opposed to the Time Lord version of the Doctor. At this point, the Roof Doctor, the Time Lord version of the Doctor, is now a fugitive, and the Time Lords employ the Judoon to go after her. But she escapes to Earth and uses the chameleon arch to disguise her presence, until Gat and the Judoon come to Earth, forcing her to turn back into the Time Lord version of the Doctor. This version of the Doctor is also aware of the Timeless Child's presence, as she didn't have her memory wiped, because pure Time Lords still have knowledge of the Timeless Child. She meets up with the Timeless Child version of the Doctor, which we see play out on screen in Fugitive of the Judoon, with the 13th Doctor being the Timeless Child version, and the Roof Doctor being the Time Lord version. Meanwhile, the Master discovers the secret, and finds out that he is not in fact a Time Lord, but is in fact a Timeless Child. On discovering this information and discovering they used his species to gain their regeneration powers, thus making it so they were no longer immortal, he destroys Gallifrey in vengeance of his species, and leaves a message for the Doctor, the Timeless Child version. And that is where we end up at this point. And this is the current point of Doctor Who. So, I want to know what you think of my theory. Do you think this is possible, that the Timeless Child is like an alternate universe version of the Time Lords? Do you think this could be possible? Leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. I've been Cyberman Alf, but from me for now, it's goodbye.